That's all right. So we're now going to begin to look at the 3 pieces of content that Michelle introduced in terms of the standards that apply to our services for kids with disabilities. And we're going to start by talking about screening, then we're going to talk about assessment, and then lastly we'll talk about ways to include our children with special needs. Remember that you were going to think about 2 kids in your head for whom you'd like to do some thinking and some planning today. And that first child is one that hopefully you've completed a screening on. We'll come back to those results in a little bit as we talk today. So as Michelle mentioned, we have 3 standards that inform our screening work with children. One is that half of our staff have training activities in screening. We're going to give you lots of resources if you need to pick up in any of these areas. Your handout has lots of resources and people to go to who can help you find the screening and training that we're talking about. So one of our standards is that at least half of our staff have training in screening. The second standard is that our children are screened within 90 days of starting in early care. And lastly, once we screen children, our last standard is that we refer children as needed for a full assessment. If we find areas of concern in that screen, that we refer them for assessment within 30 days of that screen. And we'll talk more about each of these. We want to emphasize that if your center is not yet screening, that this is a really useful, practical way that you can increase your STARS rating. So let's first talk about screening. In your all's minds, how would you describe screening in one word? Raise your hands for volunteers. When you're online, just enter in the chat box. How would you describe screening? Anybody? Just raise your hand. Yes?
First in the chat box says baseline. Assessment, okay. Another person says.
Okay, it gives us a baseline. What else?
First in the chat box says snapshot.
Yep. Other thoughts? Observation, yep.
Person in the chat box says quick way to identify red flags.
Yes. What else? Yes, just call them out, Walt.
Guide.
Yeah, it's a guide, sure is.
Seeing if a child lines up developmentally.
Uh-huh.
To guide instruction.
Yep.
Test.
Yes.
Tool to help parents understand milestones.
Yes.
Intimidating.
That's a good answer, honest answer.
Parent perspective of their child. Refer children for additional resources. Development.
Those are all great one-word answers. They describe screening well, and that's some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And we're especially going to talk about the challenges because we've all had them, and lots of you have figured out ways to overcome those challenges in screening. It's great responses. So screening is, as you all have mentioned, it's a way to see if our children are developing on schedule. It's relatively inexpensive, it's brief, and it's hopefully accurate if we're using a tool that has good reliability. It does identify children who might need support in specific areas, and it also identifies for us children who need to be referred on for a full assessment. Screening is not diagnosis. It's not the same thing as assessment. It's a first step. As someone said, it's a snapshot of where children are right now. Excellent. You have lots of resources in your handout guide for screening, and one of the things we want to encourage you to do is if you are not yet screening and you want to start a screening program, we encourage you to contact any of us and we'll help you get started. The state encourages us to use the Ages and Stages kits. We have a few for loan if a center is thinking about starting screening, and if you have some staff or a screen, simply contact us and we'll help you get started. And we'll also be talking through some ideas for getting that rolling today. So we're going to try our first poll. If you are here at Coldstream, we'll ask you to raise your hand in just a minute. And if you're out there online, we'll ask you to enter in your chat box. So first of all, the question is, and we'll see, Walt is opening the poll for us. We'll see how this works. First of all, do you use the screening tool in your center? That's a yes, I take it. Okay, great. Got one?
That's it.
Yay!
So you can't vote. But
So those of you out there online can vote at this time.
And they are voting.
All right, good. And we had a handful of folks here on site who are screening. Lots of you aren't in a position to screen yourself, and I understand that.
Stop it.
Yeah, we'll see what the results are. Now there you see the results. So for folks that were able to vote at this point, we have 68% of folks participating who do screen, and we have about 34% of folks who aren't screening at this time. Gives us room to work. That's great. Thank you. Should I close this? Or just?
Are you going to ask another poll question right now?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think it'll change when he.
Okay. Do I tab back or just?
No, you stay. And
just advance?
Post the next question.
Are you ready for the next question?
Yes. So the next question is, if you couldn't figure it out, if you do screen, what screen do you use? Or if you're consulting with centers who screen, what screen do you use? And there are 3 choices that we'll show you as soon as we can. Do you use the ages and stages? Do you use the Brigance? Or do you use some other screen?
That's the wrong
The screen's the correct question. It's not there. What is
question. Do you use the screen?
Yeah, it is. We can start from up there.
How do I minimize this?
I thought she just asked that one.
She just asked that one.
You just asked that one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you got to ask the second question. She just asked it yes or no. Now she's asking what kind.
Right.
Should I minimize?
No, you don't have
Just
to
leave it
change
alone?
It's going to change when he posts the thing, the newest question, the other question.
All right, so let's start with a show of hands in here. If you use or consult with centers that use the ages and stages, raise your hand. Okay. If you consult with centers or use the Brigance screen, raise your hand. And if you use an other screen, raise your hand. Okay. Okay. So we have some of each. Can I advance the slide?
He found it. Yeah. There we go. Now what's that?
It's not letting me advance. Do I have to alt tab?
There you see, it's not letting you advance because we're still in the poll.
Okay. So now you'll see the online folks get to vote. Which screener do you use? Ages and stages, Brigance, or some other? We had some representation of all of those. Okay. We have over 200 people out there online, so it may take them a little bit longer than we to vote. We're glad you're there. Okay.
Sharing.
And there you see the results. That plus our results here, 58% of people are using ages and stages, 45% are using Brigance, and 22% are using some other. And some are using both. Okay, great. Now,
Do you have another question?
not for a little while.
Okay. Close your results. And now click on that screen. Yep. And now you should be able to advance.
Yay, thank you. So as we've talked about, through the Division of Child Care, Ages and Stages is what most of the programs that are funded by the Division of Child Care use. HANDS uses it, First Steps uses it, lots of child care centers use it. So these are both versions of the Ages and Stages that we do recommend. Again, there's sample kits here for your use. We're going to talk briefly about both of these tools today. Again, this is not a screening training. This is just an introduction to these tools. They are both researched and well tested and reliable. We encourage centers to use both. A lot of centers will start by learning and giving the ASQ3, and then once they're comfortable with that, they will then add the Ages and Stages Social Emotional, which now has a second edition. We do recommend both so that you get a full view of children's functioning. The Ages and Stages looks at 5 areas of development we'll talk about briefly, and the Ages and Stages Social Emotional really lets us go deeper into children's social emotional. So if we have concerns there especially, that's a form we want to use as well. They're both administered in a similar way. Again, look in your handout for resources that can help you get started on screening, that can coach you through this whole process, and any of us are willing to work with you as well. So the second standard that pertains to screening is that we want children to be screened within 90 days of their enrollment, again, with the ages and stages or the screen of your choice. The ages and stages is recommended because it is parent completed. Generally what we do in a child care center is we pick the correct form based on the child's age. That's the first and important thing to do. Send it home to the parent. There are explanations on how to fill it out and score it. We can always talk with parents and help them if they need help filling it out or scoring it. The parents send it back to us, and we work with them on the results that we find. So it's a great collaborative way to work with parents, find out parents' concerns and the things that they're pleased with for their children. The ages and stages covers children from 1 month to 5.5 years of age, and the ages and stages social emotional now goes up to 6 years. It also helps us identify children who are at risk for possible delays. And again, the ages and stages comes with some great learning activities. This is a book that's only about $45. That is a great companion to the ages and stages that helps our teachers know what things to work on for areas of concern. So the ages and stages 3, as I said, has 5 domains of development, and you learned that by going through that form today. It looks at communication, gross motor, fine motor, problem solving, and personal social skills. There are 6 questions in each of those 5 domains. So each questionnaire has 30 questions. The ages and stages social emotional 2nd edition looks specifically at social emotional skills. The results that we get, yeah, question from online.
What was the name of the book that you mentioned?
The book is called ASQ3 Learning Activities. Good question. And is there also a companion book for the ages and stages social emotional? Learning activities, right, good question. Links to all of these information is in your handout as well, how to order. So again, the results that we get from the ages and stages, we get a range of results. We find out if there are currently no areas of concern, or we find out if there are some areas that we need to monitor, or we find out if a child's score is in the black zone on any of the questions in any of the domains, then we want to refer them for a full assessment. Again, this is not a diagnostic tool. This is not an assessment tool. It simply tells me, here's an area that the child is exhibiting some possible concerns. We want to refer for assessment. So let's talk about how your child did on the screen that you filled out. I filled out the 24-month screen on a little guy that I'm going to call Marcus. He's approximately 2 years old, and I filled out the questions on Marcus and scored it. Let's hear from some of you. For the child that you did a screen on, anybody that wants to volunteer, raise of hands. Did anyone find children who had skills in the gray area? Raise your hand, okay. And basically what we want to do, if we have children with 1 or 2 areas of gray, those are areas that we want to monitor. If there's more than 2, then we're going to refer on for a full assessment. Did anybody have a child with any kind of score in the black area of your scoring? Okay. Great information to have. And if I hadn't done the screen, I wouldn't know that there's several areas that I want to work on with Marcus. I found out that he was doing great in communication. He's doing great in problem solving. I have some concerns for his gross motor, fine motor, and his social skills. So I'm going to watch those areas, and I'm going to target those areas for some work and watch and screen him again in a few months and see how he's doing. Okay? So what areas are you going to work on? Raise your hand, chat box, enter in if you found areas that were either in the gray area or in the black area. What areas do you see that you're going to work on with your child?
Gross motor.
Gross motor. Anybody else?
Fine motor.
Okay. Other areas? Online folks, did you find areas that you have concerns with your child?
Gross motor,
Okay.
fine motor,
All right.
problem solving, social interaction.
Okay. So this gives us at least a place to start. By doing this screen, I know Marcus a little bit better. I've talked to his parents, we've shared information, and we have some areas that we know we're going to focus on with him and with your children as well. This is we'll keep thinking about these things as we talk through some of the activities that we're going to talk about today. So the last standard-related screening is if we give a screen and we have a child with several areas of concern in the gray or a child with any areas of concern in the black, then I'm going to refer that child on for a full assessment. And this is the last standard related to screening and screening. So I have 30 days from the time that the child is screened to refer them on for a full assessment. You have resources in your handout. This sometimes is a challenge for centers. So if I've screened and I find that I need some children who need full assessment, where am I going to send them? And where would you all send your children and families if they needed full assessment? Where might some of the places be that you would send them?
County school system.
School system. Where else? Where do you refer for full assessment? First Steps. Bluegrass. Comp Care. Any other places? Yes, online.
On-site therapists, First Steps, Nationwide Children's,
Okay.
behaviorist,
Okay.
primary care physician,
Good idea.
First Steps, 7 counties.
Okay. So you have a general idea of some places that you can go for full assessment. Some of our early care centers do their own assessments, and we'll talk about that shortly. And if your center has the capability to do a full assessment, you can simply go right into that step yourself. If not, you've got places in your community where you can refer, and we urge you to do that, to get a full assessment. It may be that I screen Marcus, he's got an area in the black, I send him a full assessment, and the full assessment reveals there's no concern at this time. And that's great news. And if the assessment indicates there's areas where we can work and he might be eligible for services, that's also good news. So let's talk about if you are screening in your center or you haven't yet started screening, let's talk about what are some of the barriers and what are some of the ways that we've overcome those barriers to implement screening. Several of you in here do screen now. If you already have or if you're considering it, show of hands or in the chat box, what kind of challenges have you discovered in trying to screen children in your centers? What are the struggles that we see?
You mean just doing the screening itself?
Anything related to implementing time? Yes?
Getting questionnaires back in a timely manner.
Yes?
Parent reluctance.
Yes?
Parent involvement. Distractions. Not enough money to purchase.
Those are all the barriers that we run into, isn't it, with implementing a new program?
Time.
Staff time. So what's one of the things that we can do? Some of you all are screening. What do you do? Because you have to be careful. You can only send the questionnaire home in a certain, like about a 1 month frame. What happens if you send a 24-month questionnaire home and you don't get it back, or you don't get it back until the child's 26 months? What can you do? What can you do to get more parental response, first of all? Parents are reluctant. I get that. We don't want to find out if there's a concern with our child. We don't always want to know that. So what can we do to encourage families to complete a screen? What's the basic?
Educate the parents.
Educate the parents. And what comes before working with a parent and talking with them about their child? It's kind of a basic level that we have to have established before they're going to trust us. Pardon?
Rapport.
Yeah, got to have rapport with the family. If I just send a paper home out of the blue and say, please fill this out, and they're not knowing why I want it or what I'm going to do with it, got to first they have to trust us. Yes?
Have parents fill it out in the school, in the center.
They can fill it out right on site.
Developing a relationship.
Yes.
Home visit, building a partnership with the parent.
Yes. Yeah. Any ideas what we can do about the cost of the screen? I mean, these kits cost roughly $250 a piece. Any sources of funding that you all have found that can assist with that?
Success by 6 helps us.
Okay. So oftentimes there's local community efforts. Success by 6, community CECCs, they have money for screening kids. Other ideas for funding support for screening? Yes.
Metro United Way.
Okay. And Metro United Way, both in Louisville and in Lexington, they do intensive screening programs and also support centers in their areas to do so. Okay. That's great creative problem solving, yeah.
Can parents share that you have that?
As an agency can purchase a kit, and then all of the families within that agency can use the same kit. It's a really good question. So depending on how you define your agency, for instance, Success by 6 or Metro United Way, those are big blanket programs. If an agency or a program is how the publisher defines it, buys a kit, they can then share the forms with all of the families in their agency. The forms come electronically as well as paper. So that's a really good question. And there are kits available across the state in Kentucky. You can work with the programs in your county to see if you're able to share and cooperate on the use of a kit. And again, we've got resources to that effect in your handout. This is a good question. So we encourage you, if you're not already screening, to think about implementing a screening program. We will assist you. The state will assist in helping this happen. We know that it's no small feat. You first have to train your staff. You then have to get your parents on board. Another thing I was thinking about in terms of helping parents fill it out, we have found in the past that when all parents in the classroom get the screen and get the form, you're more likely to get participation. If they know that they're not being singled out, and I wouldn't ever recommend singling out one family. Send it to everybody. Let it be a center-wide effort. You know, August is the month that the screens go home. And when it's part of the protocol that parents do, they're more likely to participate if they know that everyone is doing it. Okay. So let's talk briefly about assessment. We realize that if screening is a challenge, that assessment is an even bigger challenge. So this would apply more for centers that are already screening, and lots of you already are screening. If you are screening and you're not yet doing an assessment program, we encourage you to do that now. Assessment, the standard pertaining to assessment is that we assess our children, and that information informs what we do with our kids. It informs what we do individually, and it informs what we do with all the children in the classroom. So how would you describe assessment in one word? And here's a chance again for those of you online to enter it in the chat. As opposed to screening, which we talked about, being a guide, being a snapshot, how would you describe assessment? Anybody want to volunteer? Okay.
Picture of the child.
Okay. It's a more complete picture of the child.
A guide.
Mm-hmm.
Process for evaluation.
Yep.
Results. Evaluation and observation. Investigation.
Mm-hmm.
A way to screen a child's current and prior. Went too fast.
Thorough is the word they keep.
Thorough. Yes.
Ongoing.
Ongoing. Absolutely.
Continuation.
Yep. It's a continuous process. And for assessment in Kentucky, we encourage programs to look at the continuous assessment guide that talks about best practice for assessment. And it's all of these things that you all have said. It's observational. It's ongoing. It guides instruction. Okay. So here's are some of the points that you all made about assessment. It's a way to see children's functioning across developmental areas. This is much more in-depth than the screening information that we got. Assessment is much more in-depth. It's usually done over several sessions or longer with a child. It can be given by teachers who are trained or by specific evaluators, comp care, school system. It helps us to determine developmental areas that are areas of need for children where we need to focus. And it may, in fact, tell us about eligibility for either First Steps or public school. And we do recommend that it be ongoing and curriculum-based. And today we'll talk about the assessment instruments that are recommended by the State Department in the Continuous Assessment Guide. Some of you use those tools, some of you use others. So let's do a poll about assessment. We'll let Walt get that ready for us. The question is, do you use an assessment instrument in your center? If you're here present, raise your hand if you or the centers you consult with use an assessment. Okay. And it's interesting that most people who are screening are also assessing. That's a testament to your hard work. That's wonderful to see.
They're voting.
Okay.
Amanda, you're still
Okay.
voting now.
Okay.
Sherry.
Okay.
I did share. I think you're gonna have to.
Okay. I'm switching it to the next question just so that. So do I need to do this deal?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see that about 68 of folks who are responding online are using an assessment instrument, and about 33 are not yet. That's similar to the screening results. So the next question, let's see if I can show it. Oof, without, yeah. Oh. So I don't know if I can. What I wanted, the last poll question that we're going to have for today is, if you assess, or if you work with centers who assess, which tool do you use? And what I've listed here is the 6 tools that are primarily used by preschool and first steps. Go for it. So again, let's try oh good. We'll try a show of hands in here. Anyone use the Carolina curriculum for infants and toddlers or preschoolers? Okay. Anyone use the HELP? Those are the 2 tools that are often used by first steps. Anyone use the Teaching Strategies Gold? Okay. Anyone use work sampling? And anyone use Core Advantage? And anyone use AEPS? Okay. So the 2 that I saw indicated were Gold and I forget the other one. We'll see what the poll tells us.
Great. Come on. End the poll.
Okay.
Sharing results.
Okay. So you can see that in Kentucky currently, amongst folks who are responding today, 54% of centers are using Gold. Other, 24% are using Other. And that makes perfect sense because there are more tools than this that are approved by the Continuous Assessment Guide. These are just the tools that preschool and first steps use. We've got a pretty relatively equal number of folks using the Carolina, the HELP, or the AEPS, and the Core and the work sampling. So that's also pretty representative of what's happening in our preschool programs. Those percentages are pretty similar. So excellent. Now, do I close this?
Yes.
So thanks for your votes. Let's see. Oh, yay. So when we look at the Continuous Assessment Guide, and you all are well familiar with those of you that are assessing, you know some of the best practice principles related to assessment. It needs to be affordable. We don't want cost to be prohibitive. It needs to meet the needs of the children and families in our center. Some tools are better for some populations than others. It needs to be reliable and given by staff who are trained in the tool. Giving an assessment tool is not a simple matter, and it needs frequent updating and training. And again, our coaches are here to help you with that, as well as our regional training centers across the state. Best practice for assessment is that we do involve families, that we interview families, get their input on the things that they have concerns about and they see their child do that we can't see. And it's designed to support what we do in the classroom. So these are some of the general principles of good assessment practice. We're going to look now at a neat video that shows us an early care center in Colorado where they do continuous assessment in an early care center. I think it's fun to see.